but let me permit me to stand on existing protocol, and let me welcome you all again to this year's Nigeria EU Climate Diplomacy event. At this breakout session, we will be looking at energy, and more specifically, decarbonizing the economy to meet Nigeria's NDC and SDG 7 target. We have some wonderful panelists for this session, and they will be moderated by Professor Olayinka Unakin, who is Professor at the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Covenant University in Ogun State. I will let him introduce his colleagues, but would first like to give you a short scene setter for this session. Globally, the use of energy represents by far the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions from human activities. About 2/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions are linked to burning of fossil fuels for heating, electricity, transport, and industry. In Nigeria, only 18% of total electricity on the grid comes from renewable energy, and the rest comes from fossil fuel powered turbines. For many reasons, electricity generated in Nigeria is less than the demand. This means that only about 4% of the energy required by the Nigerian manufacturing industry comes from grid-connected electricity. Furthermore, studies conducted on Nigerian industries reveal that energy costs account on average for up to 45% of the total cost of production. And this is from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and shows to what extent Nigeria's energy mix is dominated by fossil fuels. Since 2008, the EU has committed almost 200 million euros through various development instruments to support the Nigerian power sector, with public sector-led interventions and the promotion of investments by the private sector in Nigeria. Our support to Nigeria in the decarbonization of its economy includes grants to the public sector for policy and regulatory frameworks, renewable energy and energy efficiency infrastructure, capacity building, data for electrification planning and standards. In addition, we support the private sector through innovative financing, capacity building, market intelligence, and business roundtable events. We hope to increase our climate finance to support new and existing renewable energy and energy efficiency actions in Nigeria through our new instrument program cycle for the period 2021 to 2017. I'll finish with a question that I trust will be addressed by our panelists today. Given the increasing population of this country, of which a large proportion do not have easy access to energy, how will Nigeria utilize its enormous renewable energy resources in meeting its SDG Goal 7 and energy sector NDC targets by 2030? I wish you all an exciting and informative session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Taylor. Can you hear me clearly, please? I want to really thank you for this great introduction. And you set the scene very well in terms of the rest of the presentation, which the panelists and the others will join me one by one in presenting their perspective on the topic entitled Decarbonizing the Economy to meet both Nigeria's NDC and SDG 7 target. So good morning or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, in whichever part of the world you are now. My name is Olayinka Unakin. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this event. I would like to share that this event is extremely timely and towing the path of energy access as enshrined in SDG 7 and carbon neutrality. We will have to look into COP26 and all the deliberations. Hence, collaboration between energy and climate communities is also extremely important. So if we look at things, despite the decline in CO2 emissions as occasioned by the pandemic, from the recent emission gap report, the world is still heading for a temperature rise in excess of 3 degrees C this century, and that will still be catastrophic. So recently I was listening to Mr. Vaisama, the Deputy Executive Secretary, UFCCC, where he said that we can only achieve the 1.5 degrees C of the Paris Agreement by taking urgent action on the NDC and ensuring transition from fossil fuels to REs. So this forum will discuss, one, how Nigeria can meet its SDG Goal 7. I've gone through it, the enhanced, which will be out next week or before the end of this coming month. It's actually very ambitious. We'll be discussing opportunities for RE in Nigeria, innovative approaches towards a just green transition, learning from Europe. We are having Mr. Marcel Bouquebon here. We have to learn from Europe, especially the Netherlands, while contributing to achieving the world's climate objective. So joining me in this room, I'm having Engineer Farouk Yabo. He is the Director, Renewable Energy Department, Ministry of Power, Nigeria. And Engineer Faino Rajaka is the CEO, Green Village Electricity, Nigeria. Mrs. Abiba is she's the CEO, Society Renewable Energy Companies, Nigeria. Mr. Owen Bassam, Managing Director of Manufacturers Power Development Company. It's that's a subsidiary of MAN. Mr. Marcel Bouquebon, the Climate Envoy, Kingdom of the Netherlands. And Dr. Ademola Adesoji, Energy Expert with Agency Française de Développement, France. So please, for participant question and answers, please use the Q&A section of this platform. When the time comes, we'll read out your questions and then direct it or channel to the appropriate person to answer. Thank you very much. So now I'm having to start the session. So all the panelists, I believe they're in the house, please. I don't know if you can just, put on your video, or if by the reason of data, if you may not be able, there is no problem with that. But I would like to start with Engineer Farouk Yusuf. Engineer Farouk, are you there, sir?
Yes, Prof, I'm here.
Oh, thank you very much, Engineer Farouk. Please, I will prefer that all panelists unmute themselves. This, I mean, to be more like a participatory section, you may all unmute yourself. So provided there is no background noise, I mean, I'm comfortable with that. So I'm starting with Engineer Farouk Yusuf, please. If you look at, I read your recent IEA report on the Renewable Energy Outlook 2020. ARIA has shown uncommon resilience to COVID-19 pandemic. We are just exiting COVID-19 now. We are just exiting the pandemic, and this year is so pivotal to the delivery of the SDG 7 by 2030. So whatever happens this year, we have a lot to say, and taking into consideration the ambitious NDC targets that we have. So from that report, we saw that ARIA has shown uncommon resilience to COVID-19 in 2020. If we look at it, we have a decline in global energy demand by 5% that same year, 2020. That same year, we have now more like a 7% growth in RE deployment worldwide. So we have a total addition of 260 gigawatts from RE worldwide. If I may go to my question, Engineer Farouk, why has RE shown this resilience to the pandemic crisis? What has assisted this with this impressive trend? And do we have same experience in Nigeria? But I want you to focus more on Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, for this opening. I listened very carefully at the opening session. Very interesting, very exciting statements and commitments from partners across the world. But I would like to single out the EU for the much, before going into your question, for the much they have done on the ground in terms of improving or providing mitigation actions with regards to renewable energy project, which connects to your question. Probably this will answer your question. In the last quarter of 2021 to now, we had commissioned over 20 projects that were funded, mini-grid projects that were funded across the country by the EU. We've, in addition, commissioned almost double that number of projects between the REA, the Ministry of Power, and other federal government agencies in terms of small mini-grid projects. And also the private sector has done quite a lot in terms of putting solar PV, for instance, on the rooftops in Coca-Cola Zenith Bank, and so on and so forth. So all this points to the fact that you should not be surprised that the renewable energy itself in Nigeria is showing positive growth. I remember the International Energy Agency, who we are working closely with, have also requested for data from us. And when we shared with them, the first query that came out was that, are we sure that the numbers are actually correct, looking at that there is an increase in 2020 and even the first quarter of 2021 with regards to upgrade renewable energy project, mainly solar project. So to answer you, the truth is that we recognize the fact that we are way behind. Nigeria, like many sub-Saharan African countries, still, continue to face the challenge of inadequate access to sustainable, reliable, and affordable modern energy. And so there is no time to sleep as far as we are concerned. Every opportunity to do projects is taken very seriously by government. And so we also are fully aware and committed to the various United Nations commitments, starting with the Sustainable Energy for All initiative of the United Nations, which was championed by the then UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon. Nigeria since then has, working with other West African countries, developed a number of policies and regulatory frameworks that allows for some of these things to continue to. Our regulatory commission has done a great job of coming up with a number of regulations that allows for private sector in particular to get involved into these areas, despite the privatization of the distribution franchises. Again, when you look at all this, you connect it with our commitment to the Paris Accord, and particularly our NDCs, which demand of us to have unconditional reduction of our energy, emissions up to 20% and then 45% conditionally. So working together with our colleagues in the Federal Ministry of Environment and other stakeholders, we've tried as much as we can as policymakers to create the right environment with regards to providing some incentives, particularly issues to do with duty waivers, issues to do with, like I mentioned earlier on, new regulations that allows for coexistence of the grid and the mini grids. So putting all of this together, I think one will only expect the renewable energies, off-grid space at least to grow. We have over the last few years had challenges with our grid-connected renewable energy, and this is largely to do with the electricity market itself and the poor infrastructure, particularly transmission infrastructure and distribution infrastructure. Government has since noted this, and you will be aware that a number of power-reaching initiatives are in place, in particular the Presidential Power Initiative, which is intended to strengthen the transmission grid across the generation, transmission, and distribution. And without such a big initiative, certainly we continue to have challenge with absorbing additional intermittent renewable energies like solar and even wind. Of course, to do this, we need heavy support because this is highly capital intensive sector. And so in a short and long summary, the government, particularly the Federal Ministry of Power, is very much conscious and aware and has leveraged a lot on partners like the European Union and the German government to enhance and improve on our planning. In particular, I would like to mention the fact that we have recognized data, credible data and modern tools, electronic tools as key to our ability to meet up both the SDG goals and our NDC's targets via a transparent process where each project that is done could be shown real-time online, and then people can follow on the progress that is made. And I am happy to announce that with the support of the European Union and the German government, we have been able to, for the first time in the country's history, develop a national central data management system, which identifies the entire clusters across the country where people live. We've also been able to map out the entire low and medium voltage grid to pole by pole based on the GPS coordinates. And so we know exactly which community is connected in at least 22 states, and we know which is best electrified through a mini grid or through a solar home system. And we see this as a major development that could create transparency, accountability on project development. It's also open.
Hello, Engineer Farouk. Well, I think we've lost him. Thank you very much. Anyway, we still continue when you come back on online. I want to go to Engineer Hifine or Rajaka. Engineer Hifine,
Prof, I realized I got lost. So
okay, so we can still
about that, but I rest my case. Thank you.
No, thanks so much, Engineer Farouk. In fact, you've actually answered. I mean, you are so pivotal to this particular session, and we'll be coming to you, from time to time. But before I move on to Engineer Hifine, I will still want to ask a question. It is very evident that an overhaul of the energy sector, if you look at our enhanced NDC, which should be out anytime soon, that have gone through it. If you look at all the parameters, I mean, the facts, I mean, the figures that are there, you discover that it's really ambitious. So from that, one can see that it's very evident that an overhaul of the sector, this energy sector, is a prerequisite to meet or to put Nigeria on the track of climate neutrality. So much emphasis has been placed, on solar deployment across the country from most of the projects that we see around, and less on other areas, renewable energies, that we have in abundance in the country, with the exception of hydro, So what is your office doing to develop wind, utility scale wind and utility scale PV, solar PVs, utility scale CSP, concentrated solar plants? We have a vast deposit in the northeast region of the country in terms of the resource endowment. What is your office doing concerning biomass, even renewable hydrogen, for industries?
Yes, Prof. Again, thank you. We're doing a lot. As you know, the ministry itself is a policy-making entity. So we are largely trying to create the right enabling environment. But what we started doing way back in 2014, 2015 was to carry out a number of studies, resource assessment studies. We, for instance, done a number of studies to determine the biomass resource base across the country. We've also done studies related to wind potentials much earlier in, I think, 2015, 2016. Of course, we've done several hydro, small and medium hydro studies. And as we speak, we have done at least Kashimbila hydropower project is completed, funded by the government, 40 megawatt. We've done Dadinkowa, which is a private sector funded project through concession. We are currently at the advanced stage of developing 5 small and medium hydropower projects through competitive concession that was completed about last year. So we are doing quite a lot in terms of developing other resources. You mentioned, large scale solar. The building I'm sitting in right now, the powerhouse, has had the benefits of going through a competitive concession process. And we have already identified a private developer who will install close to 1 megawatt on this building through a purely private PPA-based structure. A lot of similar things are happening. The Rural Education Agency in particular has been involved in a number of projects, as you may be aware, in the universities. There has been the economy, energizing economy, and so on. So yes, we are not really focusing a lot in solar, but of course we also need to realize that Nigeria is not so much, I mean, onshore, it's not so much a wind country. I wouldn't fail to mention the fact that the 10 megawatts solar, I mean, wind power plant in Katsina State has just been completed. It was meant to be commissioned, but somehow we realized that because of the low plant factor, we may need to hybridize it. That means to introduce solar as a complementary source, looking at the very low plant factor of wind in the country at the moment. So yes, we are fully aware of the resources endowment. Lastly, probably I will not fail to mention the fact that the ministry has just initiated a process of establishing a hydrogen working group. Particularly, we are trying to target green and the blue hydrogen infrastructure, I mean, across the different ministries, departments, and agencies. And we're looking at working with partners, particularly from Europe and from European countries. So this is something that we also intend to put in our electricity vision 30-30-30, which is a vision to have 30,000 megawatts of on-grid electricity by the year 2030, with 30% at least coming from renewable energies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Farouk. I'm still coming back to you, but I quickly want to have a chat with Engineer Hifine or Rajaka. Engineer Hifine, are you there, please? Can we see you? Can you turn on your videos, please? Or if it's not possible, can we hear from you? Or mute yourself, please.
Yeah, hi, Olayinka.
How are you doing today? Hey, fine. Good morning. I've been following you for years, so it's nice talking to you today. So, please, highlighting the very important drivers of RE. You've done pretty well in the mini grid space, and then you've actually put your name on the board there. You've written it on very boldly. So the first will be cost and cost decline, while the second one is policies. So policies remain important pillars of RE growth, especially, talking of solar PV, talking of other REs. Are you getting me? So while we can have ambitious long-term RE target, reflected in the enhanced NDC by 2030, absence of the right policy to meet up to that target, and the clarity of those may hinder the industry progress for the lack of stability. So this will be a critical roadblock that may need to be resolved for more and large-scale RE deployment in Nigeria. So now my question, what policies in Nigeria have been responsible for a business-driven growth of RE, talking of mini-grid, solar home systems, etc.? With the rapid growth seen in these technologies, one can say that these policies are wonderful. In fact, there have been several accolades that these policies are better than those of most countries of the world, even the Western countries. So talking to a field person like you, Ifan, how effective are these policies? What modifications will you want to the policies?
Yeah, thanks, Olayinka. My pleasure to be on the panel, and good morning, distinguished panelists and participants. So I would say over the years, the industry have actually made some significant progresses, which is evident on several fronts. So starting with policy, currently the Nigeria's mini-grid regulation have been adjudged one of the best, if not the best, in the world, which try to accommodate all the stakeholders as much as possible. And I would say, to a large extent, one of the critical factors that led to that was the bias and willingness of private sector players like GVE to step out from like normal business and norms to actually engage with all the other stakeholders like the financiers, the government, the regulator, and all the other stakeholders, and including multilateral agencies like the EU delegation as well, so that to pass the message of what is actually obtainable in the field, what consumers want to see in a policy document, what private sector players would want to see in a policy document, and what the financiers that we have been engaging with would want to see in a policy document. And it was a combination of all these facets that led to the creation of the mini-grid regulation. I must commend Engineer Farouk and his team in the ministry for having a listening ear, and also the NEC to implement as much as possible some of these recommendations. But on the Hind side as well, what happened, even though it's been developed to be near perfect, there are still some gray areas. And as an industry, we're currently working on a policy review note, recommendation, which is currently in the final draft, and soon it would be made available to key stakeholders in the industry, particularly the regulator and the coordinating ministry, being the Ministry of Power. And the major component of that, or the major request or prayers of developers, is actually around what happens in the eventuality of grid encroachment. So we feel that, and we and also our investors feel that the provisions of the regulation as currently captured do not fully provide adequate protection for investments deployed.
Thank you very much, Ifeanyi. Yeah, being a major player in this space, can these policies drive a grid-tied area project? I just want to quickly look into that before I go to Abiba Ali. I think she's having another meeting by 1 p.m. So can these policies drive a grid-tied area project? Though we are having interconnected mini grid now, but grid-tied, what do I mean? Utility scale, area deployment to the grid.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Inka. I believe it will eventually be a situation of a child whose time have come. So even the grid system as currently constituted still have its challenges, and it might even be quite difficult to integrate RE sources on that scale at the moment because of the dynamics. But on a short-term basis, it's no longer news that distributed renewable energy solutions, be it isolated mini-grid, be it interconnected mini-grids, are making quick wins. And by these quick wins, you can see the sector is a lot more advanced at the moment than it used to be about a decade ago. And we believe leveraging on these successes over the past decade, by or before the next decade, we will begin to see tremendous improvement as regards grid-tied systems.
Thanks so much, Ifeanyi. Please, let me quickly go to Abiba Ali. Hello, Abiba, are you there? Please, can you
yes,
please
I am here. I am actually in some community. I'm hoping that I can minimize bandwidth by not using my video.
Oh, that's
but
all right.
I'll try. Let me see.
Yeah,
I had to drive to where the mast is and see if I could actually get better network. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, please. Thanks so much, Abiba. Just like Ifeanyi, I've been following your work, for years now. The society renewable technologies in Kaduna. So, going to my question, meeting future energy demand, if you look at it, is a high priority in Nigeria, especially with the escalating population growth. So with the current indigenous fossil fuel resources being incompatible with climate and sustainable development goals, that's a plus to drive the RE. And the COVID-19 pandemic causing fuel price volatility and economic uncertainty. So as a country, we can now seize the moment to put our resources at the forefront of our planning and growth agenda. So a lot of time when we talk about area as a solution to the power problem of the country, a lot of times. So however, total reliance, if you look at it on mini grid, solar home systems looks more like under exploiting the vast area resources that we have in Nigeria, except hydro, which has actually been deployed to the grid directly. So without the strengthening of the grid, this approach may continue for long. So are we doing enough in Nigeria with the renewable energy? With the deployment of RE, are we doing enough? Is the drive there, or do you think we still have to do a lot before we can hope to see a close in the gap by 2030?
Well, I think that, I mean, having been in this space for over 15 years now and seeing the trajectory, the growth of even the acceptance of renewable energies by people. I mean, these days I drive around town and I see panels on roofs. And I remember there was one of the first meetings I had with the Energy Commission of Nigeria, and I think I got on some people's nerves by saying, if for the fact that we're from the north and the energy center is in Sokoto, we should try to happen. But yeah, I think that 3 years with the World Bank financing, the AFDB, there's so much. The Rockefeller has, and IKEA just signed a big deal recently. We didn't have an all-on in the past, and now we have all-on. And in 2000, I think 5 years ago, this must be their 5th or 6th year, we had the Power in Africa opportunity as well, where USADF tries to fund renewable energy projects in communities. So from those times where it seemed like trickling projects and little by little, and then projects that were not done well, to now where people are even beginning to understand that projects can be done and not just done anyhow and kept there, but done, like clean. In Kaduna State, for example, the Kaduna Power Sector Company recently reached out to us, and we had a discussion, and there were like 12 mini grids that were installed, I think some with the last dispensation anyway. And these mini grids were not metered. People, they were just built for the communities, and the people who did it, maybe it was a political thing, walked away. And recently, my team and I went around almost all of them. There were 2 we couldn't go to due to security reasons, but they were, we went around all of them and were able to find out what they were currently doing. And most of them were no longer working. I mean, this happens when you do not have a sustainable plan alongside, building such infrastructure. But what is currently happening is with partnership. I mean, there's a big partnership with private sector. No more are we seeing mini grids being built and people are just walking away. No, they are being metered by the private sector company that owns the grid, who now is the operator and energy supplier. So, say we have at we're in Kauranamoda, we're building an interconnected mini grid acceleration scheme project here, and we're going to meter all the houses. And we've sat down with the community people. We've talked to them about the costs. What are they currently spending on? What their alternatives are? Kauranamoda, being a very big hub of in that region, is actually having a lot of generators being used. And we had a discussion with the people to know how much of fuel do they spend. The minimum we've had so far is about 6,000 to 7,000 naira per month, and per week. And what we've realized is, if that is that much, then averagely people are spending 25,000 every month on fuel. And that's not just the major problem. For every a gallon of petrol being used, you're emitting 2.7 tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. So imagine that we now replace all of that with the mini grid that we're going to install by deploying energy to every household. All of these households that were using these generators, we now deploy energy to them, put a meter to it. Besides the fact that they will be paying something like maybe 10,000 in a month as against the 25 they were paying, they are also eliminating totally that emission to the atmosphere. So I think that Nigeria has really come a long way. I mean, we're not just discussing now installing these solutions. I mean, in the beginning, I remember in 2012 when we won the UNDP ATRE, this Access to Renewable Energy Fund by the BOI and UNDP. Then it was like we were keeping quiet, trying to keep our activities on the shield, not letting people know a lot about what we were doing. Everybody was being very conservative and keeping their information to themselves. But now we're having discussions to not just even installing, we're talking about installing the right solutions. We're talking about getting the right technology that lasts, that stands the test of time. People are beginning to understand. I mean, we have issues like AR/BR, how do you dispose of batteries? These were not discussions that we're having before, but now everything is happening and it's happening fast. And also tying it along with climate discussions. So I think that we've really moved far,
really
and we're going to get somewhere bigger.
Excellent. So from our discussion so far, we have really done so well as far as this RE deployment is concerned. So if you look at most mini grids isolated, the cost per kilowatt hour can be as high as 200 naira or even more. I know one which is 175 naira per kilowatt hour.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. This is high compared to grid power, though may not be cost reflective. I mean, the grid power, that may be to that advantage. Do you think this cost can go further down or even be competitive with what obtains from the grid by 2030? Hello, Abiba, can you hear me?
That I don't in Nigeria talking. Can't you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I was saying that one thing we actually have forgotten, I mean, we are not realizing in Nigeria is that energy is not a cheap commodity. That is why when you go abroad and you live in one room for 1 month, you're constantly turning off your lights, switching off everything, not using. Sometimes people go as far as when there's no the cold is not too much in a day, they don't turn on their heating. That's because energy is a commodity that is not cheap. In Nigeria, we have taken it for granted for so long that there's been so much subsidy to this energy, and we've just been using it anyhow. I mean, I'm looking at the community now that is not far away from me. Normally, what you will see is all these incandescent bulbs hanging around, 60 watts, blasting from morning till night. Because at the end of the month, when the NEPA or PHCN staff comes, it just says, okay, every household just bring 200 naira or something and walks away. So that same person, when you bring a solar home system, or their neighboring community, bring a solar home system or a mini grid and install, they will never appreciate it because they do not understand why NEPA light was so cheap and now yours is so expensive. I do not think energy is going to be good for energy to come down in price. It should just be cost reflective. What I would say here is that if you go into communities that they use a lot of generators and they use a lot of alternative sources that are expensive, they value it when you put a mini grid that's selling for 200 naira per kilowatt hour, because they can immediately see the difference when they compare that to the cost of what they were spending using their generators or other alternative sources. So let us appreciate the fact that when there is no energy, for 2 weeks now, a friend of mine has not had lights in their area. Their transformer blew up. And he told me he spends nothing less than 10,000 naira every week on generator just so that he can at least have 6 to 8 hours of energy so that he can, I mean, when he's at home and, the refrigerator can work and a few things can also, and this is a small generator. So imagine people who have bigger generators in that area. Let's appreciate that energy is not a cheap commodity and be willing to pay for it and manage it efficiently. So if this is where energy efficiency also comes in, and people realize that you don't just have energy, you need to also manage it efficiently. And so I'm not of the school of thought that believes energy, I'm not going to deceive anybody and say energy is going to come down in price. No, energy should be reflective of the cost that's being put in there.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks so much, Habiba. If you look at solar before, now solar and wind, they're actually cheaper than diesel per kilowatt hour. They cost worldwide now. It's very, very competitive. It was not like that years back. So that's actually where I'm going. Maybe I'll take the question again to Ifeanyi later. So now, since we're very busy, let me quickly go to something. If you look at SDG 7, clean energy, there are two components there, electrification and clean cooking. And you are into clean cooking too, the efficient cook stoves. So if you look at it, there is a drive. Electrification is gaining traction, but clean cooking is not at the same pace with electrification. What do you think may be responsible for this? Or what can be done to close up this gap? Electrification and clean cooking.
Is that question to me still, Mr.
Yeah, no, to you. I mean, Abiba, since you're leaving soon, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. I mean, clean cooking. So you want to know if electrification and clean cooking can actually be...
No, what I'm saying is this. If you look at SDG 7...
There's no need for me...
Okay.
Yeah, there's no need for me talking about SDG 7 and inclusive energy and all of that, sustainable development, and finding out that energy is actually at the nexus of all of the sustainable development goals. And for you to suffer through going from your city or urban area to go to one community and install, say, solar lanterns, why will you walk away and just leave them alone to continue using open fires? So it's it's as much as it is expensive to manufacture a very good solar solution, let's say a solar home system, as it is to get to that community sometimes. Innovation is only as good as the impact it makes, I will always say. So if you innovate this amazing product, how much impact is it making in the community is what matters. And the only way it can make impact is if it gets to that community. I won't spend all of this money. Currently, we're in Kebbi State and Zamfara State trying to, because the Rural Electrification Agency, after winning the output-based fund, we can apply for the Solar Power Niger funding. And one of the things they've done is they've allotted locations to some of the companies, all of the winners. And we have Kebbi and Zamfara State. And I'm traveling into these communities and I'm like, oh my God, I can't come this far all the way from Kaduna, and this is me that's even up close to them, and go back without just bringing all kinds of energy solutions to them. So why not? I add on solar lanterns and solar home systems or whatever options they choose, because we always have this opportunity of discussing with our customers what is the best suited to them. It could be a mini grid, it could be SHS. And after that, we piggyback on that opportunity of coming in there and as well deploy to them improved cook stoves. And now we're not just talking about improved cook stoves, we're even thinking of going further to cleaner cook stoves, which are now the LPG, the angle that the government. It is best as we deploy energy, and I think this is something that all of the developers should also be looking at, is that as we deploy energy to communities for lighting, for economic activities, we should also think about how do we exonerate people from the suffering that is being envisaged in the household energy use, starting from cooking, lighting, to everything that they use. And so you tie in your work to cooking energy that is clean, efficient, lighting energy that is clean, efficient for lighting the house, televisions and stuff, and then for productive use as well. So that way we are doing an all-encompassing work that is ensuring that communities are actually coming out and having livelihood development as we would like to see fit.
Thanks so much, Abiba. I hope you still be in there. You still be with us till 1 anyway.
Yeah.
So
yes, inshallah.
Yeah, please. Let me go to Dr. Adesoji of Agency Française Development. Dr. Adesoji, are you there, please? Can you please unmute yourself? Hello, Dr. Adesoji. All right. Okay. Before you come back, let me go to Mr. Marcel. Hello, Mr. Marcel, are you there? Hello, Marcel, are you there? Can you unmute yourself,
I am.
Please?
Good afternoon.
Oh, excellent. Good afternoon. It's nice meeting you today. So let me quickly question, because I'll still be going back and with all the panelists. For SDG 7 target, I'm quite aware of your position being the climate envoy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So we look a lot into COP26, the net zero by 2050, and now Africa, especially Nigeria, we are going to benefit from that. So for SDG 7 target and net zero commitment, we are looking at 2030 and 2050 respectively. This commitment will beg of discussion at COP26, you are aware of that. Hence, the role of long-term energy scenario is very vital. We look at now, let's start from 2022 to 2050, from 2022 to 2030. Now let's look into the long-term energy scenario there. How can government and businesses use long-term energy scenarios to articulate the pathway to achieve carbon neutrality?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And let me start by saying that it's a great honor to take part in this session of the dialogue between the EU and Nigeria. I've had the opportunity to engage with several countries as part of this European climate outreach, and without exception, these encounters have been very positive. So I really strongly believe that we are in this together and that we have to cooperate to fight climate change. Maybe to go into your question, zoom out a little bit and get back to the Paris Agreement, where we both committed to work together to mitigate the causes of climate change and to adapt to its effects. And as you say, this year, 2021, or actually 2020, as we have been delayed by a year, we are supposed to enhance our ambitions 5 years after Paris. And the EU has already submitted its updated NDC and raised its reduction target considerably to 55% emission reduction in 2030. And the EU, as you said, also set a long-term goal of climate neutrality in 2050. And that's a firm target enacted in a climate law, creating predictability and stability for public and private sectors for the decades to come. And that is, we have done that to also backcast from 2050 such a set target helps you to be predictable and able to make plans for the shorter term as well. And if I relate that to Nigeria, we see that you are moving into that same direction with sea enhancement in the works, increased investments in renewable energy, climate smart agriculture, also bouncing back from the negative effects of the COVID pandemic.
So we are really doing well from what you are saying now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Shall I also go into
Please go ahead.
A few examples of what we have done in the Netherlands and in Europe? Because energy links all economic sectors together, and to reach the Paris goals, it's essential that all countries intensify the transition from fossil fuels to clean and sustainable energy. And of course, the Netherlands cannot be compared easily to Nigeria. There are huge differences between our countries, and however, we can definitely learn from each other. So I think this is perhaps a good occasion to share some examples and a few lessons that we have learned in the Netherlands. You probably know that the Dutch windmills that were used to pump water out of the lowlands back into the rivers to enable farmers to use the land that thus becomes drier. Actually, the Netherlands uses many sources of renewable energy, such as hydropower, biomass, wind energy, tidal energy, waste to energy, geothermal and aerothermal energy, and of solar energy, the topic of this panel as well. So let me focus a little bit on that. The Netherlands may not be the sunniest country, yet for decades it has been one of the global leaders in both fundamental and applied solar research. The Dutch were among the first to build a fully functioning solar energy system and have developed crucial patents still used by numerous international manufacturers. The Netherlands is home to a vibrant ecosystem of companies and research institutes that covers virtually the entire solar technology chain, from materials to device design, manufacturing equipment, software, high-end solar modules, and complete project developments. And the Netherlands, being a small country, but in terms of annual installed capacity, among the top 3 in Europe and the top 10 globally. So the Dutch government's CO2 reduction commitments are accompanied by an active innovation policy.
Excellent.
And there is a strong tradition of companies and research institutes forming partnerships and consortia, also with partners abroad. Because the space in the Netherlands is scarce and the natural conditions are challenging, the Netherlands has built up a strong tradition of teamwork and integrated thinking, and also using, for example, roofs in inner cities to install solar capacity. As you perhaps know, most of our country is man-made and designed. We reclaim land from sea and carefully share the available space. And this has resulted in what we call the polar mentality, which is synonymous with a mindset built around cooperation and shared interest. Strong, supportive public policies are instrumental in the Dutch energy transition, such as the EU Green Deal and a Dutch National Energy Agreement. One interesting development is, or one interesting decision is that in 2018, the government decided to replace natural gas as the main energy source in the Netherlands with renewable energies. So that is an important step, again, to be predictable for the longer term. Now back to Nigeria. Solar energy is considered one of the main ways for Nigeria to reach its electrification and NDC targets, and it's increasingly adopted across the country, by households to small appliances, mini-grids powering entire markets or communities, as previous speakers have alluded to, and of course corporate entities. And the reduced cost of solar panels and batteries have made this transition to solar more feasible, and Nigeria is among the fastest growing markets for solar around the world. Still, the relatively high upfront installation cost deters the lower segment of consumers. And this is a problem because renewable energy should not be a luxury product. Luckily, government policies and institutional finance schemes are gearing up to facilitate further growth in solar. And it's my hope that the Nigerian government will consider lowering import taxes on solar panels and batteries to accelerate the energy transition. Let me give 3 examples from the Netherlands in how we cooperate and invest in Nigeria.
Excellent. Please go ahead.
The utility scale solar program of the Climate Investment Fund, which has financed 100 megawatt of solar power in Nigeria, targeting a reduction in greenhouse gases of 75,000 tons of CO2. Secondly, together with the EU, we invest in Climate Investor 1, which has provided funding to a 30 megawatt solar project in Kaduna. And thirdly, we contribute to the Green Climate Fund, which transforms the financial system in Nigeria by helping financial institutions to support renewable energy proposals of small and medium enterprises. Furthermore, Dutch solar companies offer high-end technology at competitive price, engineering skills, and are ready to cooperate with Nigerian partners. And therefore, our embassy and consulate have published a sector study about solar energy in Nigeria and are working on a Dutch solar energy consortium for the Nigerian market via the Partners for Internal Business instrument. And hopefully it will start this year. Climate action offers so many economic opportunities in Nigeria: job creation, boosting economic productivity by bringing renewable energy sources to remote rural areas, in that way also increasing the number of people with access to energy, and of course the potential to diversify the economy and make it less dependent on oil income. Maybe one more thing, Mr. Chair, reacting to Habiba Ali. We are now discussing replacing the one source of energy with the other. But Habiba is fully right. The best form of energy is the energy not used. So let's also focus on saving energy.
Excellent.
With a brief overview, I hope I've made clear from our side that we are ready and eager to develop some of the plans and opportunities we see. We are, of course, there to be your partner in this transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcel. Thanks for sharing the journey so far, the Dutch journey so far to net zero with us. Now we adopted. If you look at our policies now, that is driving the the mini grid space. We adopted the mini grid policy of India, instituted in 2016. What are some of the innovations that Nigeria can adopt from the Netherlands? That we can just modify or integrate into the system?
Well, I think, as previous speakers also referred to, if you decentralize your energy production, it creates different demands to your grid and also to the interconnectivity. So it's very hard to give a general answer to that question. But one thing that has helped in the Netherlands is to integrate your planning. So not only do it from a central point of view and roll out renewable energy sources like solar or wind, but really into your design already take into account the capacity of the grid, but also the users you envision of that newly provided energy. Just give you a small example. In the Netherlands, sometimes new villages or new neighborhoods are being planned, and they start building houses and make them future-proof immediately by creating solar panels on roofs or integrating wind turbines in that neighborhood. While planning, they forgot that surplus of energy that would come from such neighborhoods that would be energy generating would also have to be fed back into that grid. And that was not ready for it. So, and they forgot in the early stages to involve the utilities and the management of that grid, the energy companies. So that is a kind of thing that we learn along the way. Do it together and sit around the table with all stakeholders to plan for the longer term. And that is really a lesson that we have learned in the Netherlands.
Thank you very much, Marcel. Thank you very much. I don't know if Dr. Adesoji is in the room. Dr. Adesoji, are you in the room? Okay. So, Mr. Mbasam, please, are you there? Can you please come online, please? Can you unmute yourself? Mr. Mbasam, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sam. How are you doing today? Please, you are more like the mouthpiece of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, the power sector. So if we take a look at the manufacturing sector, can you hear me clearly?
Very well, please.
Yeah, please. If we take a look at the manufacturing sector of the country, only about 4% of the energy consumption of the Nigerian manufacturing industry comes from grid connected. A lot of your, a lot of the guys have actually been on self-generation, blowing diesel, burning diesel anyhow. And some are so powerful as in financially, and then they are having gas engines and then gas turbines, powered by gas and then, CNGs, Furthermore, studies conducted on Nigerian industry reveal that energy costs account on average for up to 45% of the total cost of production. So this will be reflected, of course, it will be spread across the, the cost of goods, and this, at the end of the day, you discover that it's so high, and the consumers actually to bear the brunt. So as the mouthpiece of the industries in Nigeria, what is your sense of this topic?
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Lainka. Thank you so much for having me. And I want to thank those fellow panelists that have spoken. I'm so impressed with what I've heard. It's very encouraging, and I can see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Before I answer your question, I would like, if Farouk is still in the house, to...
He's in the house. He will be with us all through, because he's just more like so pivotal to the discussion today.
Yeah, there was
Engineer Farouk.
Okay, there was a question you...
Yes, problem here.
Okay,
yeah.
There was a question you put across to him about utility scale solar. I understood utility scale solar to be something around what the grid can be developed at a large scale, maybe a mini farm like 7 megawatt, 45 or 100 megawatt or thereabout, that can be fed into the grid.
If you're above 1 megawatt, you're already approaching utility. Anything above 1 megawatt.
Okay, but okay, I just wanted to link that to either 12, 14 large-scale solar projects that were on some years back, and all of a sudden we didn't hear them again. I would want him to shed a little bit of light on that. Second question is, I want to thank EU for this opportunity that's been given to us. It's a rare privilege, and I appreciate it. But I would have loved, from the manufacturing point of view, if there were universities segments, particularly where we can incline into research, where what Habiba said about used products, how they can be managed, number one. Two, how some components of the value chain can be manufactured in Nigeria. I appreciate, or from my point of view, we appreciate the enormous effort that is coming from Europe, but we also want to grow as a nation, developing our industries, being able to manufacture solar panels, being able to manufacture batteries, some of the components, so that we can also be self-sufficient and sustainable. I think this is one of the help EU can help us with too. Now, coming back to your question, I think this topic is very, very apt. Matter of fact, MAN is already collaborating with AFD with the $70 million Sunref Fund.
Sunref Fund, yeah.
Yes. What is the purpose of that fund? The fund is tailored towards energy efficiency, energy management, optimization of energy, like Habiba said. We don't have enough of the energy, yet we are wasting them. Now, some of the industries are old. As such, they have old, obsolete equipment that guzzle unnecessary energy, adding to the bottom line of manufacturing. Apart from the fact that the energy from the grid is not enough, manufacturers burn, pollute the environment by firing old equipment that are not supposed to be there. So the fund is there to enable manufacturers change some of this equipment so that not only being more energy efficient, decarbonizing the environment. Matter of fact, if you have a generator, but you are not sufficiently funded to procure gas generator and there's availability of gas around you, you can actually approach the fund and be given money to procure a gas generator to reduce your carbon footprint. Secondly, if you have enough space, you can also apply for the fund and access it for developing renewable energy of any form, either solar or biomass, depending on what is good for you. So in addition to that, as as part of the decarbonization effort, we're also looking at collaborating with United Nations Office for Small Hydro to take advantage of the rivers around some of our manufacturers so that we can develop small hydropower plants, connect to the industries, and by extension, also connect to the communities around. So this is how we are looking at it. And I think this is what EU is so apt, and it will be helpful at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mbassan. Thank you very much for, having to, shed more light on the AFD Sunref project. If you look at some companies are now fully or partially running on RE, especially solar.
Yes.
AJ, are you aware of the Nigerian cocoa tulip industry on 2.37 megawatts of solar to fire the plant? And the Nigerian Breweries Limited on about 800 kilowatts at peak. So how are you encouraging from your office and supporting potential members to go green or to go clean? How do you assist members, member companies financially, because this is key to them going green or clean?
One of the beautiful things that Sunref has assisted us to do is to support the team in Manufacturers Power Development Company, training us on energy audit. Most of the companies which you have mentioned and others, they just develop as the need arises. But we have realized that the first step is doing an energy audit. When you do energy audit, it throws out all the areas where you have weak points, wastages, where you are negligent, where there is clear, poor energy housekeeping. So you'll be advised what to do, the kind of project you should go into, and the right size of project that you should go into, and the kind of money that you should spend. So right now, MAN through NPDC is encouraging members. We're actually going around all the geopolitical zones campaigning or sensitizing members on the need to do energy audit. When you do that energy audit, even if you don't have that fund to make changes, your management will know that at year X, we need to do this. Thank God the Sunrise Fund is there. For those items that are critical to you, you can immediately apply for the Sunrise Fund and change some of those equipment. So what we are helping members to do to answer your question, first, know your status. What are the areas where you need to discipline yourselves in terms of energy usage? Once you know that, you are good to go in terms of managing your energy well. So we are encouraging them to do that. And then we're also encouraging them to apply for the Sunrise Fund so that they can be more energy efficient. Not only being more energy efficient, drop in the cost of energy in their production process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. Thanks so much for shedding more light on the SONREF and then what MAN has been doing, to assist member companies. Let me go back to Ifeanyi, are you there, please? I don't know if Dr. Adesoji is in the room. Dr. Adesoji, are you there? Please, can you unmute yourself and talk?
Okay. Yes, I'm in the room.
Oh, sorry, please. I've been, trying to reach out to you, but please, let me quickly ask a question from Ifeanyi before coming to Ifeanyi. Are you there, please? Ifeanyi.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. If I look at something, we are now having interconnected mini grids, which is highly innovative. What other innovative approaches towards a just green transition can you discuss? Possibly to drive down the cost of clean power. What other innovative approaches? Because now it's still high, just like Abiba said, that you spend money, which everybody agrees. But if it's high, we don't expect it to still be high for long. We should still expect a dip. And then maybe economy of scale can assist production of all the, gadget, the component needed to set up the power plant. And by that, you discover that there's a dip now in the cost per kilowatt hour. So what other, innovative approaches towards a green transition can you discuss, possibly to drive down the cost of clean power?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So just like the isolated mini grids, which were about between 9,000 to 10,000 US dollars per kilowatt a couple of years ago, tremendous improvements in technology, in the deployment processes, and also several other related factors like economics of scale have seen substantial reduction in the capex requirements to somewhere in the range of between 4,000 to 6,000, depending on cost of finance and geographies for isolated mini grid. Similarly, the interconnected mini grid is still at a very early stage in the development process, and I'm very optimistic that the model has everything it takes to revolutionize the electricity industry as we know it today, because it tries to build a collaborative framework for all the stakeholders on a dual value basis for both the consumers, the utility companies, and the mini grid developers. So ultimately, as we continue to see significant increasement or increment in the rate of deployment and adaptation of interconnected mini grid solutions, we will continue to see significant cost reduction. So to shed a bit more practical light in that regard, the cluster where we piloted pioneered the interconnected mini grid model, which is the Wusi Market cluster in Abuja in collaboration with AEDC. Already, at just very minute scale, we are seeing significant values. So the consumers are seeing about 25% already reduction in on the average reduction in cost compared to what they used to spend prior to the project. And for AEDC, their own data, not even from us, shows that they've seen about over 170% increment in accruable revenue and over 300% increment in their collection rate. So, and this is just at the moment, just for 12 of the over 2,000, 24 rather of the over 2,000 potential consumers and the cluster. Then you can imagine when we cascade this to several other locations in the country, then it begins to make more economic sense on a unit basis.
Thanks so much, Ifeanyi. Thank you very much. I had something in mind. I was looking at it that if we, for example, you enter the mini grid space, and let's assume that sponsors are releasing fund, just like the 550 million NAP, $1 million, World Bank and EFDB, and then we are having funders releasing funds to the system. We should expect mini grids to grow up astronomically, covering almost all the local government and everybody's on mini grid. So with that, I was looking at it earlier, that maybe with the use of artificial intelligence to manage sites, because it will be too burdensome, having human beings to be going there from one side. You can see Abiba traveling to Kebbi to look at some of the project. With that, assume you're having to manage thousands of sites as population rises and needs grow astronomically. The use of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, all this can be considered innovative approach. And with time, this will assist further to bring down cost. I sincerely appreciate you. I'm still coming back to you. Let me quickly ask you. You want to say something?
Yeah, before you leave, you're very much correct. And I think already internally, because of our vantage position being leaders in the space with controlling about 60% market share, we tend to, some of our experiences tend to make us to make further pioneering inroads in best practices. So already some of the experiences we had with the COVID-19 lockdown and the related activities have actually pushed us to tilt towards the initiatives you just described. So at the moment, we're significantly automating and digitizing most of our processes.
Excellent.
to ensure as much technological adoption as possible, and also not just cost saving, but also in the interest of safety and security of our personnel, given the current security instances we have in the country.
Thanks so much.
And to add to that,
please.
Talking, for example, before we started coming to Kebbi and Zamfara now, there was already the use of some sort of a tool called the Flow to actually identify these locations. Truth be told, no matter how much we are going to automate stuff, we still have to be there physically to install the solutions, right? And actually find space where you're going to do your building, where you're going to, whatever it is you're going to do, you still need some physical presence. And then you leave that space with some sort of, what do you call it, IT-based or technology-based thing that will help you monitor payments, help you monitor if somebody is tampering with the solution that you have installed, if anybody is stealing it or anything like that. So your staff won't have to constantly be coming back to that community. And one of the things you can also do is to actually have a staff even in the community that's actually living there. And then you have all the other attendant technology-based support that can help you monitor your solutions from a distance. So it's already happening. And it's like most of these solutions are even very interactive. You can see how much energy is generated, how much is, there's so much that you are able to do even now with so much technology already.
Thanks so much, Abiba. I initially thought you have gone, really. So thanks for being there. We'll still come back to you, Abiba. Thanks so much for the addition. Let me quickly ask one or two questions from Dr. Adesoji. He's back now. Are you there, Dr. Adesoji? Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much. You are an energy expert with the AFD Agency for Development. Now, take a look at it. The third goal of COP26 is finance. However, we need to know the needed transition will not be free. It will not be for free. So funding has always been a tough challenge to RA development, especially in this part of the world. Are you getting what I'm saying? Because in order for the government to attract financing, from international institutions, they need to provide guarantees to mitigate risk. So let me go to my question now. In future, what development do you envisage on RE with regards to the current financing mechanism that we have in place?
Okay, thanks a lot for this question. The question is really broad, but let me start by catching up with one of the questions, very important question you asked earlier to one of the intervenants, that has to do with why is it that we don't see a springing up of off-grid solution, renewable projects all over the country and so on. Let's start by saying that in AFD, we noticed that yes, there is an interest. There is an interest from all parts to really make it a reality that renewable projects are coming up everywhere. But we notice that despite a good regulatory framework, there is need for a policy to streamline the interventions, to really guide the interventions. What do I mean? In the process of reviewing the PIP of these schools, we came up with an approach which has allowed for these schools to define their manageable areas. You see, you have catchment areas where every disco know that, okay, if I put $1, I may have the return I'm expecting. Now, you have areas that are not manageable at all, where a disco cannot even put an injection, cannot even put a transformer. So in that process, we have been able to have a good understanding of areas where a consensus could be built with licenses in the sector based on available regulation, so that the IPPs can strive. Now, this is the agenda that we are trying to pursue in AFD. We are currently preparing, beside SUNREF, which my colleague made mention of earlier, we are currently preparing a very massive access program. And that access program will discriminate between the areas that are in the catchment area of discos, but for technical reason, for layout reason, disco cannot attend to them, which could form a kind of IPP in a certain manner. And the other area are areas that fall virtually under the purview of the rural electrification program. So we have to streamline all this in order to drive the process. This is the geographical sharing of role. But then you also have the private sector developers really interested in coming up. Then the real question here is, what is the economic model? What is the business model? And as you know, most of those areas, sometimes we need some subsidy to strive. Now, the question is, how far can we combine available resources in order to really bring up solutions that allow the private sector to really intervene? Yes, the intention to invest are massive, and at the same time, the need for subsidies are also massive. So it means that there is a trade-off to find somewhere among ourselves and so on in order to see what could be done. Now, to come back to your question, definitely in AFD, the approach we approach the sector with soft loans, with sovereign instruments where investments are needed and applicable. We also have the possibility to mobilize some guarantees. But then, as I said, it's only after streamlining the interventions that we can have a good idea of figures, maybe then the authorities can go around, donors and development partners, to see who can bring what to the table. But what is key as it is today with the approach we took, which is to involve the private sector, to involve the private developers, definitely there will be a kind of subsistence need of subsidies somewhere. Moreover, when you move towards the rural sector, where the ability to pay may not be forcefully there. Now, what we are trying to do in our project concept is to attach our renewable energies programs on economically viable sectors. So electricity, even in the rural sector, should not be seen as disconnected from the economic activities. That's where a certain type of end-use technologies has to be thought of. If you are thinking of a concept of rural electrification, then you also need to make available the possibility to have instruments, equipment, just like grinding machine that could work on solar, and subsidize those in the process of getting them used by the end user. Let me stop there. You may have more specific questions.
Yes, I will.
But the subject is broad. Yes, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Engineer Farouk, are you there? Please, I want you to take one or two more questions before I go to the participants to ask their questions. Engineer Farouk, are you there, sir? Engineer Farouk. Hello, Engineer Farouk. All right. So back to Dr. Adesoji. Please, let me ask one more question. One more question. How can we accelerate action towards the goals of the Paris Agreement and energy transition? Do you have anything? I mean, how do you think we can accelerate action towards the goals of the Paris Agreement and energy transition?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead, Engineer.
Okay, sorry. Let me just, Engineer Farouk, sorry, let me quickly ask this question from you. Then Dr. Adesoji will pick up that later. Engineer Farouk, sorry, please. If you look at, for example, so vital countries, the up-north countries of Africa, Algeria, Morocco, if you look at those countries, I'm very close to them. They have very high electrification rate. In Algeria, it's about 99% electrification rate and clean cooking access rate.
Prof, I'm missing you. I can't hear you well.
Okay, can you hear me now, Engineer Farouk?
Yes, you are better. I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying that the up-north countries of Africa, Algeria in particular, you discover they have very high electrification rate of about 99% and clean cooking access rate. Do you think we can close up the energy access gap by 2030?
Well, at least that is our goal and that is our intention. So
in 2021,
likely, yes, that is our goal and that is our target. And looking at what has happened elsewhere, it's very possible to do that. However, I believe strongly that we must do a lot more than we are doing right now, particularly in terms of our coordination across board, and also in terms of our being very pragmatic in our approaches to these issues. Of course, we've all agreed that the transition must be just, must be equitable and inclusive in terms of even working with our partners. If I will connect back to the point raised by Sam of Man when he was making his presentation, he did mention about the 14 solar IPPs, which has been on the board. And this could be very important projects that could us achieving the goals set by for ourselves. Now, this project has been stalled for a very clear reason, the reason of the perception of risk in our market. So the projects were private sector unsolicited projects, which government had the goodwill to take on and to engage effectively with. At some point, it gets to a level of PPA, that is power purchase agreements, which are more or less sovereign debts, if you like, or sovereign guarantees. After much has been done, the idea of PCOA, that full call option agreement, also came in. Now, as we speak, the federal government through the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company has been able to, in the last 2 to 3 years, sign up all the guarantees that are needed for at least 2 of these IPPs. Unfortunately, this project couldn't still close for reasons that the project have probably been perceived as a risky project by lenders, I mean here talking about international finance institutions. So I think as we move on trying to achieve our objectives, we have to realize that the government itself can only facilitate. It's not the one going to the field to do this project, especially looking at our privatization reform laws, which open up the market for the private sector in some of the most fundamental or most accomplished decision any government in any country could ever take to actually privatize a sector like energy. I mean, like electricity sector is a very, very massive accomplishment that many countries could not accomplish, even advanced countries. But we, as a government, federal government, has been able to achieve this. But we need our partners across the world to also recognize that they need to shift positions, especially the financing world, that some of these projects that have come far should be supported based on the instruments that government can afford. For instance, the 2 projects I mentioned were given PPAs signed. They also have the PCOA. Of course, there is the issue that the PCOA is in Naira, not in dollars. But I think these are issues that development finance institutions should be more intuitive in coming out with solutions, because these are beyond the government's own frame. Most of these projects were built, developed by the private sector, working closely with their lenders. So I just wanted to make that a clear point. Now, in terms of our ambitions, I believe the NDC targets, the Paris agreements, could well be achieved through some of the efforts that are going on now that brings the transport sector, the housing sector, the industry sector together. I mean, institutions or organizations like MAN should consider strongly the use of rooftop solar, just like they have started doing at Coca-Cola and other agencies. They are also to strongly embrace the idea of energy management system. Particularly, I know we are partnering with MAN through the Nigerian Energy Support Program, which is implemented by GIZ and ourselves in the ministry, to certify a lot of these industries to be energy management compliant. So I think this is one area that if we should achieve our set goals, the industry, particularly MAN, should also take leadership in ensuring their members start decommissioning their diesel generators at least, and then so that the gas-powered plants can work hand in hand with solar rooftop systems. Of course, I will not end up without saying that innovation is really the key as we see it in the ministry. We have been working very hard in the last couple of years to encourage and promote the 4th Industrial Revolution technologies in order to allow for what Habiba has mentioned to happen, digital monitoring of projects, particularly mini-grids. The central data management system I mentioned today has functionality where we can monitor any project in this country real time, as long as you can share the APIs with us. And so we can now be able to see not only where people live and where the grid has reached, we're also able to see what mini grids are developed in which part of the country and what capacities are installed, what energy is being consumed. Now, the point raised by Mr. Michel of incentives is very key. We have strongly been promoting the idea of incentives for both renewable energy and energy efficiency. Now, the concern and the challenge that has bedeviled us lately is the fact that this cannot be tracked. The economic impact of this investment by government is very, very challenging to follow, and we need a clear framework where if the Nigerian government is given 30% subsidies based on a loan they collect from either World Bank or African Development Bank, we need to know how is it impacting socially, economically, and even environmentally within our market. We also need to know if we continue to give subsidies, I mean tax rebates, how is this being tracked? Looking at our existing mini-grid regulation allow for bilateral contracts between the local communities and developers. So mention was made on the high prices of mini-grids in the range of maybe perceived high price in terms of 200 Naira and above. We believe that we need to be more transparent, both as developers, private developers, and as policymakers in terms of knowing that what is the real cost reflective tariff for this project, so that at the end of the day, we will be all inclusive in terms of taking the benefits of this decarbonization.
I think we have lost Engineer Farouk there. Hello, Engineer Farouk. I think we have lost him. We are having to bring the session to a close by 1:30, and I'm currently going through all the questions. Most of the questions have already been answered. You know. Hello, Engineer Farouk.
Prof, I'm back, and I think that was my last point. So
okay.
Just wanted to end up by saying that I think we need to really be inclusive and be transparent, because of course, at the end of the day, for Nigeria, what we need is not only energy, but economic prosperity to the citizens of Nigeria. So, I mean, everybody should look at his role as emancipating the economic advancement of the country as just against providing power for making profits.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Engineer Farouk. I'm just trying to go through the questions now from the party. I think all the questions have actually been attended to one way or the other. So, Engineer Farouk, I think we're having to bring this to a close by 1:30, but I have one question which is so vital. You know, from discussion so far, you discovered that we've got a policy, very good policies in place. So if you look at these technologies, especially solar technology, if you look at batteries, panels, etc., associated with any of these technologies, these are commodities. Some factors like customs and import processes may hinder the rapid decline in the price of these commodities. Or don't you think so? So now, customs are saddled with the responsibility of generating IGR, and the government wants this price from power to go down. So is there a mismatch there? Are you getting me, Engineer Farouk? So how have you been able to manage this menace, and what is your office doing on the side of the federal government to reduce or eliminate this problem?
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Very apt question, and that was what I tried to allude to. You know, there are so many various interests in public policy space. For instance, you find Minister of Industry, which is very keen to see manufacturing happening in Nigeria. And they believe strongly that if you allow every aspect of our, of our needs to be imported into the country without any long-term plan for manufacturing, then you have issues with not having the value. On the other side, the customs also, they have a responsibility to raise funds for government to do roads, to do water, and so on and so forth. And the argument been posing out is the energy sector itself is hold the nexus of every other aspect. But that said, we also have a responsibility to ensure that whatever benefits that are provided to the private sector eventually translate into economic value in country. For instance, we expect that in the short to medium term, basic assembly of some of the components we are talking about should start in the country.
Excellent.
This is, yeah. So I think these are some of the real issues that we are battling with. On the one hand, we want to make sure that it's progress in the energy space. On the other hand, we want to ensure that it's economic empowerment that is domiciled within the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So please, just we're having 3 more minutes. I want to ask just the last question from Marcel. Hello, Marcel, are you still there? Please, can you unmute yourself? Marcel.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, please. If you take a look at it, the COP26 summit will bring parties together to accelerate actions towards the goals of the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC. So many of the countries most vulnerable to the impact of climate change are in Africa. And this time around, we are dealing with the big boys. What does Africa, what do we stand to benefit from COP26? In Glasgow later in the year. That's we are dealing with the big boys, and what do we stand to benefit? We know how situations used to be like, before. So what do we stand to benefit?
No, I think that's a fair question. And if you look at the COP in general, it just is a meeting of parties to an agreement. Let's put it that way. So the narrow result of the COP, so if you would define success of the COP by the result that the negotiators will reach, it will result in what you could call a climate regime within which we can realize the goals of the Paris Agreement, and those would benefit all. And then we are talking about details on market mechanisms. We are talking about transparency. We are talking about time frames, things like that. Very technical and very relevant to all parties that are signatories to both the Rio Convention and to the Paris Agreement. So that is our common interest in a successful COP. But the COPs are more. So there's also a almost political element to it, where the countries, and you call them the big boys, but it generally is about all of us, where we are able to enhance our ambition and really show results in terms of implementing the targets that we already have. So the real climate action on the ground. And those two go hand in hand. If we reach results at the technical front, it will actually help us implement the actions that we already have in our planning. But it's definitely necessary that is the relation to Africa. And I think you're fully right when you say that the severe impacts of climate change are being felt in Africa, that you really have a strong voice in being ambitious and active on both fronts. So both in the technical outcome of the conference, but definitely also at the political front, that we really have to make that progress that many of us promise, but some of us have difficulties in really showing results in. So those are, for me, the two elements that really would define success in Glasgow.
Thank you very much, Marcel. I think I want to bring everything to a stop now. We've taken, we started late, so ideally we should have stopped by 1, but we started late, so we're into 30 minutes. So I want to actually conclude at this point. I want to appreciate everybody, all the panelists. Now, the fact that so many of us met here today shows the spirit of connectivity and togetherness. As many of you have expressed, we have started with full energy. We cannot turn back now. And we must continue to look towards the future, to the net zero by 2050, because we are very close to SDG 7 now, 2030. So I want to sincerely appreciate Engineer Farouk Yabo, Yusuf, Ifeanyi Oraja, Kabiba Ali, Mr. Sam Bassan, Marcel Bokibom, I want to appreciate all of you. Dr. Ademola Adesoji, thank you very much. And all the participants, I want to appreciate you for your time. And I believe this session has been highly enriching. Thank you very much. Goodbye and God bless.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks.
Thank you, Prof.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mr.
And
Sam.
Dr.
Engineer Farouk, I will stop by. Anytime I'm in town, I will stop by to check on you.
All right.
Yes, Mr. Sam.
Well done,
Dr.
Prof.
Adesoji, thank you. Yeah, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. John,
Thank you,
John,
Doctor.
thank you. Dr. Shegun, I can cite you. Thanks so much for today.
Well
Doctor,
done.
Doctor, please share your email address.
Okay, to Dr. Ademola, is that you?
No,
Dr. Adesoji?
Mbasam.
Okay, Sam. Okay, I sent a mail to you, Harley. I'll send a mail to you later today.
Oh, excellent,
Yeah, I'll
excellent.
do
No
that.
problem. No
I'll do
problem.
that.
All
Thank
right,
you.
cheers. Bye.
And Doctor,
Bye.
on behalf
Yeah.
of the EU delegation, thank you very much for moderating the session. And this is not my usual subject, but I've learned an awful lot from the panelists today. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to further engagement with the EU and all partners, green partners in Nigeria. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much, John Taylor. Dr.
Dr.
Shegun, thank you very much.
Dr. Lajinka Shegun, the president of Ghana, just showed up all of a sudden at the last
That's
minute.
the big boy. We didn't even know he's in the room. We didn't know he's in the room. He has always been the quiet type. Anyway, we only see the impact.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So thanks so much, John. Bye-bye.